The Michigan Immigrant Rights Center is a statewide legal resource center for Michigan's immigrant communities. We have 5 offices statewide: Lansing, Ypsilanti, Detroit, Kalamazoo, and Grand Rapids. And we really have 3 pillars of our work, the main pillar being direct representation. So we represent clients applying for immigration benefits or doing deportation defense if people are detained and have a claim that they can make to defend against their deportation. We can represent them. We represent lots of immigrant children, unaccompanied immigrant children in removal proceedings. And we represent farm workers with respect to the conditions of their employment. So lots of direct advocacy for clients. And then we also do systemic advocacy to really try to address the causes of those legal problems, and community education and engagement to learn what our client communities want us to work on. There are so many crises happening right now, but the one that's really most salient to me today is that we represent unaccompanied immigrant children who are brought to Michigan in federal custody, so they're in foster care or group homes as their form of federal immigration detention, maybe brought from the border or pulled out of a trafficking situation on the interior of the United States. But regardless, they come into immigration custody alone. We represent kids who are in that custody or released from it who live in Michigan. We help them apply for their immigration status. We represent them in deportation proceedings, in immigration court. We often represent them in state court with respect to their care and custody and guardianship. We've always done that work with a federal grant from the Office of Refugee Resettlement because, of course, if you care for kids, you have kids in your care and they need legal services, and they're in the custody of the government, it only makes sense that they would be provided with a lawyer. Kids can't be their own lawyer anywhere, and certainly not in a forum as complex as immigration court. As of today, we've been informed that all of our funding for that work is terminated effective today. We are reeling from learning that news. We have been very concerned because of this administration's rhetoric around immigration and because of some of the stop work orders and the larger issues that we've seen for nonprofits receiving federal funding. But that doesn't make it any less inconceivable that our country would stand a child alone facing off against a trained government prosecutor and tell that child they have to defend themselves. I'm really happy to be talking to you from our Kalamazoo office today. That's where I live. Because of some support that we have been able to leverage from local private foundation funders, we will likely be able to continue representing kids in Kalamazoo County because we've secured private resources to help those kids win their cases. That is something else I want to say. You know, when we represent kids, we win their cases, they get green cards and they go on to live lives with that full participation, full engagement, full work authorization. When kids don't have lawyers, 9 out of 10 times they lose their cases. But again, to go back to Kalamazoo, we do believe we will be able to continue representing our kids who live in Kalamazoo County. And because of that private foundation support, we really do continue to need support from others in the community to make sure that we can continue to represent all kids here and potentially kids in surrounding areas where we haven't been able to attract private resources. Kids who live in Kalamazoo represent a fairly small fraction of the 900 kids we represent statewide. We will be having to withdraw from most of those children's cases. We still have our ethical duties, so we as an organization will continue working for quite a few weeks using resources, donations, and private funding to try to do our very best for those clients, get final applications filed, get them the best information about what's going to happen in their case and the best advice that they can take alone. If they're able to find other attorneys, that will cost their parents probably between $5,000 to $10,000 cash up front and maybe more over time. And we just know that these are These are kids who themselves, obviously, they're kids. They don't have money to hire lawyers. And most of their families and sponsors and guardians, if they have been released from custody, don't have the means to retain counsel for cash. And then obviously if they're in the federal foster care programs, there's no one who's going to pay for counsel for them anymore. I'd love to share more about the children who we represent. And I'll talk about, two different profiles of children. The youngest child we've represented through this program was 10 months old. We represented a 10-month-old baby who was taken from his father at the border in 2018 during the family separation crisis in the first Trump administration. We were able to reunite him with his family in Romania almost a year later. He didn't remember his family anymore. He had to have his former foster mother appear on a tablet every night to try to soothe him to sleep at that time. But again, because we were able to track his father through the detention system at the border, and because we represented him, we were able to get him back to his family after the tragedy of that initial separation. Kids who did not have lawyers, there are kids who are still effectively lost, separated from their family from that time, but no child who came to Michigan was not reunited with their family. We reunited all the kids who were our clients with their families because that was our commitment to them as lawyers, and that was clearly in their best and stated interest. But another profile of a client of clients who are just as much children we represent a significant number of teenagers, and they have often really fled difficult situations truly, absolutely on their own, walking, riding trains, engaging in all kinds of really dangerous street employment to try to gather the resources necessary to get to safety. Sometimes they're indigenous kids from communities where indigenous people are persecuted in Central America. Sometimes they're LGBTQ kids who may experience persecution in their own families or communities and really need to get to a place of safety and acceptance, which I hope the United States can continue to be for them. Kids just from a wide variety of really difficult situations who don't have parental or family support and who come to the U.S. alone to the border to seek safety. Teenagers get a bad rap, but I love teenagers, and our teenager clients are overwhelmingly just amazing people. Nobody except maybe Public Media Network makes stories about ordinary, loving, functional, just like anybody else kind of immigrant families, right? That's not news. Our news is very negative, very crime-driven, very violence-driven, and even though there's no connection between immigration status and criminality, and to the extent there's a relationship or a correlation, immigration status non-citizenship is correlated with lower rates of crime, and that's borne out in every study that ever looks for any kind of relationship between immigration status and crime. I have been trying to talk to people to be a bridge between our clients and my client communities and others who don't have close relationship, who don't understand what this struggle is, to try to share that our clients are overwhelmingly just regular people, no better or no worse than anyone else, but with goals and visions and dreams for their families, just like anyone else. We are at a true low point where I certainly feel overwhelmed by the negativity, the lies, and the racism that's used to characterize and portray who our clients are as a group in a way that I think most people would understand as applied to other groups is just truly racist and truly propaganda at this point. given the kind of harsh treatment, harsh punishment, and inhumanity that we're seeing. Southwest Michigan has this very long and beautiful tradition of farm worker families coming to hand harvest fruits and vegetables, of immigrants working in the greenhouse industry, and really Dutch immigrants starting that industry, and now many, many Latino immigrants continuing to work in that industry. People are not defined by and should not be valued based on their economic contributions, and yet to think of a whole group of people as a drain when in fact they contribute so tremendously economically, culturally, and socially to our region. It's not only cruel, it's not only often driven by racism, but it's also just not in the strategic self-interest of people who think that they're doing something good for the community by holding these harsh and rigid anti-immigrant views.